Hello everyone and welcome to episode 43 of the ITSM Crowd. Today's topic is all about business analysis. So we've got some excellent guests with us and I'm going to kick off by asking them to introduce themselves. So Andy, if you can kick us off and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you work and what your role is.
Hi there. My name is Andy Humphrey. I work at Auto Trader in the UK. I'm head of service management at Auto Trader, and I generally work in operations, technical support, customer experience, trying to make the lives of our customers a bit easier.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And Kat?
I'm Kat Turner. I work for ITSM Zone, and my role is Education Portfolio Manager. I'm responsible for writing the ITSM Zone courses, and also I do a little bit of presenting at events.
Thank you very much. And Viv?
Hi, I'm Viv Underwood. I work at the Climbing Hangar, and we have 3 climbing walls across the UK, and we're a small business, and my role is Operations Director and Customer Experience.
Thank you very much. My name's Claire Agutter. I'm the Director of ITSM Zone. We've recently launched a Business Analysis Foundation course, which is why this has become a bit of a topic of interest for us. As we explored the topic, we found that the roles actually evolved quite significantly. I did my Business Analysis Foundation 10 years ago, and when we started working on the new course we found that things have changed an awful lot in the new exciting agile world that we live in, so we thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of dig into some of these changes and look at how the role is moving on. If you've got any questions that you want to ask our panel while we're on air, we are keeping an eye on Twitter. So if you use the hashtag ITSM Crowd, ask the questions, we'll pick those up and we'll put them to the panel while we are speaking. But apart from that, we're going to run for half an hour and we're going to talk about all things business analysis. So Kat, if you want to take us from here.
Great. Okay, so first up, we're interested in looking at what are the fundamental aspects of the business analysis role. I'd like to start off by saying, traditionally I would see that the role covers all aspects such as processes, IT systems, job roles, skills and resources that we need to improve a business situation, developing a business case and identify and quantify the business benefits. Business analysis may also be required to support the implementation of changes as well. I see the job also as challenging, bringing challenge and moving business forward. The ECS actually states that it's an advisory role responsible for investigating and analysing business situations, identifying and evaluating options for improving business systems, elaborating and defining requirements, and ensuring effective implementation and use of information systems in line with the needs of the business. Okay, so that's my little introduction about how it is as I see it. I'd like to move to you now, Viv.
It's a difficult one in a small business. So I've worked in larger businesses where we've had a kind of formal business analysis function. And now I work in a very, very small business where there's literally 2 of us kind of in senior management. And I think for small businesses, it's a bit of an odd role because it's often the place where some form of analysis is most needed, and covering all those areas, tech requirements, systems, processes, all of those things, small businesses are going to benefit from efficiencies on that side of things massively. But it's not seen as an important thing because it's not a customer-facing frontline activity that happens. And so it's kind of a strange, I find like I'm in a strange position at the moment where it's a role that's completely necessary and is almost unheard of.
Okay, thanks, Viv. Andy, what's your take on that?
So at Auto Trader, we've gone through quite a lot of changes from being a traditional print organisation, printing lots of magazines each week, to being a digital organisation now. And some of those changes have led to changes in the way that we work in different job roles. And I'd say that one of the sort of traditional, my perception of a business analyst of old was the sort of go-between between the business and IT teams. So the person that could translate technical requirements or problems into a business language and turn those business requirements into a technical language. One of the big changes for us, and probably for lots of digital organizations, is that the business and IT as a separate thing is kind of not so much the model anymore. And what we've tried to do through Agile product development and different ways of working is to try and bring people who have business expertise and technical expertise together and try and as close as possible, really. So in lots of ways, at Auto Trader, that traditional business analyst role is not something that we hire for at the moment. And but because what we're trying to do is make sure that our customers, our business customers, and our technical teams are working as one whole. So my perception is that it's quite an unfashionable job title at the moment, but I think it's a really, really important. There's lots of really important skills in there, and for lots and lots of businesses, especially with internal customers, then it's still really needed, and there's still lots and lots of activity out there.
Okay, Andy, can I just ask you to elaborate a little bit about the skills? Because then I know what you're saying about the way the role is moving forward, and we're going to move towards discussing that as well. Clearly, you've adapted the role, or you've allowed used aspects of that role to adapt in the way you work in your career. Can you maybe talk about what the skills that you're still using, or the main aspects of the BA role that you're still using in your in the roles that you do?
Yeah, of course. I have to say I've never worked as a business analyst, so I don't want to talk out of turn, but I'm just sort of talking about my experience and my perceptions. So as I say, I think some of the bad behaviours, if that's the right way of talking about it, or the things that you want to avoid, the anti-patterns in an old way of working would be having a single go-between between a business function and a technical function is a bit like Chinese whispers, right? You know, you tell one person what the thing that you want, and then they tell someone else, but they've got questions. So they go back through you, and you're the bottleneck to all this communication. That's better than no communication at all. It's definitely a step. But actually, if you really want technical, so for us, digital products and services are all that we do. So getting the right products and services in front of our customers is so important that having a technical team separate to a business function is just crazy. So that's on one hand. We don't want there to be a bottleneck or a single point of communication between those two teams. We want them to be working collaboratively together. Having said that, some of the skills that business analysts bring in terms of communication, facilitating lots of process design, systems design, lots of conversations about discovering what problems you've got to solve, those things are really real. So we need lots of those business analysis skills, but not potentially in a dedicated role that's always working with the same team or always working on the same project. So some of the things that we really, really value are getting out in front of our customers and understanding what they need. So that kind of idea of UX design, lean UX design, so that we're getting out and prototyping, trying out new things in front of customers every day. There are certain people within our Agile teams that do that, and that's very much using lots of business analysis kind of skills of prototyping, understanding customer needs and requirements, and turning that into potential solutions. We do lots of service design. So for lots of our internal business processes, whenever we do a new initiative, whenever anything changes, we need to design that process so that people trying to get value out of that service can get it in a sensible way, and it works both for external customers and our internal staff. So UX design, service design, making sure that we're delivering changes to our organization that are really successful is a massive part of what we do. But that's probably now spread out across a number of different roles. Maybe a product owner, lots of UX designers. We would have delivery managers sort of guiding new initiatives to being live. And so it's kind of spread over those different roles.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of research on that at the moment, looking at how like product owner and BA are quite closely linked as well. But we just want to come back to you a little bit about that. As well, you were saying about dipping in and out of the role. What aspects of the BA role do you find that are most useful within your career?
Well, so there's a couple of things that I think are interesting here. One is, like, for me personally, a BA role is always very internal. And just picking up on what Andy just said, it's kind of interesting that it's almost now becoming part and parcel of almost the customer experience and user design side of things. So it feels more like, I don't know whether it's just that the focus of it is starting to look much more outwardly. So I think maybe that's a product of putting customers at the heart of businesses so much more at the moment. So actually your internal processes are so driven by what your customers need. Whereas I think maybe traditionally we tended to think of this as a very internally focused role that was all about making your business work better. And now it's really important that you understand customers as well as the internal processes. So I think that's an interesting change. I think from my point of view, again, one of the reasons we don't have go-betweens in a small business is because we're a small business, right? So there's no need for us to worry too much about the integration of our tech team with our ops team, because they're me, and it's all happening in my head. And so from that point of view, we don't have that kind of go-between or the problems with communication. But equally, we don't have the space to be quite objective about what we're doing. So where we have used consultants in this kind of role before, when we've had something big that we've needed to deal with. And I think the clarity around definition of challenges and speccing the way that you might approach those, thinking about how you measure them, thinking what the outcomes are going to be, thinking through all the tools that you would use. It's that ability to take a step back from being a person implementing things to actually put forward the best suggestion for how to move forward. And that, in a very small team, or when everything's happening in one person or two people, is an almost impossible thing to do, because it's so driven by your own assumptions and beliefs about the business. And when we have had somebody in for that, the clarity is almost, it's a bit kind of awe-inspiring. Oh yeah, that's the problem we're having. So from my point of view, that's a really important bit of the role. I understand the bit around Chinese whispers, but I think that objectivity is absolutely essential if you're working on big projects.
Absolutely, I agree with you as well. I was just thinking that, going back to you though, Andy, with Order Trader, talking about the way you feel you don't need it anymore because the way your team works. And often in a large company, the company is too big for it to work in that way. And also even within the company that you're working in, you kind of, the power is devolved and you're working autonomously. Do you think there is a risk of communication breaking down in there, and how would communication not break down?
Yeah, I think what I'm starting to realise through this conversation is that we do lots of business analysis activities, but just under slightly different names. So maybe that's just a fashion thing, I don't know. But what something that Viv said just a minute ago, internal versus external, I think it's really, really good to highlight that maybe. So you see lots and lots of business analyst roles advertised, and lots of them are quite internally focused roles. It's about how to, you've got a great big ERP system or CRM system or some enormous great beast that you need to manage, and you've got lots of different stakeholders. Understanding what they need and what the business needs is really important. I saw a business analysis role in New York for Spotify last week, just because I was sort of preparing for this. And Spotify amused me because it was an internal role about a finance team and how they relate to their business. But Spotify are like one of these archetypal digital companies who are really product driven. Everything they do is a digital product. They work in autonomous agile teams, and yet they still hire for business analysts, right? So there's obviously an internal need even within big companies, no matter what trends are going on. I'll give an example for us though. Our CRM system, so everything that we do in terms of contacting our customers used to be in a great big industry-leading CRM system, which is very expensive, and we had lots of problems getting right. So in the end, we started to take the way that we approach external products with a product owner writing in open source, tech stack with open standards, treating it just like we would do any product that we were going to go and sell out in the automotive marketplace. We started treating our CRM system like that. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've built that like an external product with product owners and UX designers and everything else. And I think there has been a big shift within lots of companies to take that outside-in thinking of the way that we design digital products and take that to our internal customers. And so for most business analysts now, I think there is a lot of pressure, even if you need to just do most of the similar work, but to call it something slightly different, it really needs to be taking on board the best practice methods of delivering digital services to paying customers. And if you can do that, then you're going to be really successful at those internal roles because they work, right? Lean UX, good service design is really, really compelling stuff.
Great, yeah, that's really interesting. So, did you say something, Claire?
No, it was me.
I'm sorry, Rob.
I was just going to say, I think that thing where your internal stakeholders, your employees, they're all using the same online or digital products that, everybody else is using. And that's kind of the standard that they see as required. And why should the internal systems you use be any different from, Amazon? Or, I think that's kind of an important change, to be honest. You have to make sure that your internal users are having the same kind of user experience as they would expect from any kind of commercial software.
Yeah, and I think it would be silly to say that it's harder to get your internal stakeholders to pay attention and be close to that process than it is your external customers who you actually have to go out and find. There's loads of techniques for getting people involved in this process, and we tend to ignore that for internal customers. We keep them at a distance. We get a list of requirements, and then we deliver something which doesn't work. So learning those lessons, I think, is really important for us. And I've been working on quite a few projects as business operations, looking at our internal processes, but looking at them as you would do if it was an external product. And I think that's going to be really important for business analysts of the future.
That sounds right. I want to add to that as well. What about regulatory change? Do you think that business analysts are more needed if you have a strict deadline for implementation? I imagine both you, Viv and Andy, probably work in that as well. Would you feel like you'd have to call in a specific business analyst for that in order to manage the quality of that and the timekeeping of that? Or would you again think that was more related to product owner, project managing role?
Sorry, Viv. I think for us, we have that kind of role, that business change role. We call it delivery manager. So it's a bit like what project managers evolved into. So delivery manager for us will work across lots of different teams, being almost like that face of the operational people who are going to have to use your new process, making sure things land on time, understanding service design and making sure that that's all executed really well, being that sort of floating member of an Agile team that comes in and helps them deliver what they need to and communicate that around the business. So we do have lots of that activity going on. It's not called a business analyst, but we do have lots and lots of that stuff. When we talk about compliance and security and all those kinds of things, having someone external to the team or one specific person in the team who's responsible for that always makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, because around compliance, deadlines, security, lots of these things, they need to be owned by everyone, right? So if you've got a lead developer or a junior developer who doesn't understand the compliance requirements of what you're doing, potentially that's a problem you need to solve. If your team hasn't signed up to the deadline, that might be something you want to solve as well. So having one person being responsible for those things, just like having one person responsible for quality, might not be great. Then we do have people who have specialist skills in eliciting, I don't know, designing great services, finding out what the real problems are that we need to solve and all that kind of stuff. And they often work between different teams, not full-time in one team.
I think for a small business, I think it can be really helpful to have somebody specific who's helping you bring something in. So if you're making a big change, so we're also about to bring in a big CRM system, for example. I think it's fair to say that 98% of people in our business don't give a damn one way or another about the new CRM system. They just want to go climbing. And that includes most of the senior management team, who would also rather be climbing. So having somebody come in to actually drive that, it can be very difficult if you haven't got senior management. It's not that you haven't got buy-in. They want it to happen. They just don't really care. They don't really care about the nuts and bolts. And so having somebody who can come in and drive that can be an incredibly useful thing. However, it's also very easy to alienate people. So we've certainly found that if we are looking to try and get, if we were to use a consultant for a project, really we need to have somebody who we work with consistently. So they might not be there all the time, but when we do a project, that'll be the person who drives our projects. We can't have different people coming in every time. And I think that's a real challenge in a small business, because how do you find someone who's willing to dip in and out of your business like that, so they know enough to bring everybody with them, but can still kind of drive it as an external agent in a way. And I think that just comes down to, it would be great to be able to do it internally, but there's quite a lot of tension between resource management and, it's just not always possible. So sometimes you just don't have the internal knowledge as well in a small business. So I think what you need is a good external person and at least one person in the business who really, really cares about it and, is the champion. But trying to drive it yourself internally can be incredibly hard.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that obviously having an external person, that external knowledge can go with them as well. So it's important to have somebody on board that also has that.
Having the anchor is really important. And yeah, definitely.
And obviously impacting on turnover of staff. If you have what Andy has, which is, you know, brilliant working, small teams working together, great autonomy, then you can keep all of that knowledge within your team, and you know that really works for you. But if you've got someone's got high turnover or young staff, or not necessarily young, but you know, maybe students or people moving backwards and forwards, then you do need somebody to kind of manage that situation, don't you?
Yeah,
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. And obviously we have absolutely just completely chaotic approach to things like document storage as well. So even if we do have the knowledge internally, quite where it's being stored or how we might communicate it is a factor on its own.
I think I'm going to move to, I think we covered the second question just within our discussion really about why it's important and the soft skills that are important, you know, for example, communication and facilitating. But I'd like to move to the third question really about how is the role evolving, which we've also talked about a little bit. I think it's interesting that we've already been thinking about the way it's becoming quite hybrid. And I know there's a lot of talk about the BA in a project management role could be the same, but my issue with that is to do with one is about deadline, one is about quality. How do they, is there a conflict of interest in that role? But there's other examples of hybrid forms of BAs as well, such as Andy talking about the product owner, and using those skills of communication, negotiation, leadership. And there's lots of other ways that hybrid might be evolving too, and other things. So I'll go to you now, Andy, if you want to talk a bit about how you see it evolving.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to have hybrid roles, really. I think, and the business analyst is probably quite a good example of that. I think lots of the skills that you need as a business analyst would really cross over to project management, really cross over into product ownership and sort of defining what you want to build and making sure that you deliver that. Doing it on time and all that kind of stuff comes into play as well. I feel like, so I think we're asking people to be much more, have hybrid roles rather than traditional roles much more and more. So we kind of want to go after these. We want to have in our teams these T-shaped people, as people describe it. So you have a wide set of different skills and capabilities. You might have one area where you really deeply understand more than anyone else in your team what's going on. But generally, everyone's a generalist. Everyone has communication skills. Everyone, deals with stakeholders and customers. And the idea that we really pigeonhole people strictly is kind of gone away a bit. I think some people are a bit frightened by that, and that they feel that they're being asked to do everything. But for me, the idea that as a developer, you shouldn't be speaking to stakeholders or communicating with your customers, I think that's quite antiquated, and I think it's a fallacy that people can't do that. It's just that if you keep people in the dark and you don't involve them with stakeholders and customers, then what do you expect? What behaviour do you expect? So I think it's hybrid roles. People are moving to much more hybrid roles all over the place. And as a business analyst, which has always been quite a generalist role anyway, that probably puts you in a really good position to then lead into lots of different areas, because where you want to do your deep dive and really specialize in, whether that's product, whether that's project management, whether it's actually a more technical route, you can probably choose any of those things, I'd have thought. But for me, the way it's evolving is probably having fewer people named as business analysts, but those sort of functions starting to spread out as a bit of a hybrid in other roles.
Yeah, and that's a really positive thing, though, isn't it? If you're thinking as your business analyst, you generalists or processes or people, or and then you can move into those technical roles, whether that be into security or design or intelligence, or and I think that is really exciting. If you've got those skills, there's a whole world out there to choose. And as I see it, is evolving, and there's lots of career opportunities for incoming BA. So I think that's really good. See if you're nodding to that.
I don't have much to add to that, really. I completely agree. I think that it's become less of a specific role and much more a kind of gateway into more specialised areas. And I think that from a small business perspective, again, there's so many moving parts to business nowadays. There was a point where, take my business as an example, is perfect, right? It's a climbing wall. You have to turn up to consume it. Like there's nothing else you can do with it, right? You just climb it. But But there's so many services around that. You know, how do you present yourselves online? Do you have an e-commerce function? You know, how do you manage your customers? How do you deal with your communications? There's partnerships, you know, events, marketing. There's so many different things you could do, and that you can, you know, there's even apps developed now, and virtual reality climbs you can do. And, you know, there's so many different things. And I think there's, even in the smallest businesses, there's now an opportunity for someone with business analysis skills to come in and really have an impact and really be able to help shape that business as well, which is also kind of exciting because it opens up niche businesses to those people who have got those skills. So, you know, if that's where you want to develop your skill set, it doesn't immediately mean you're only going to be able to have a job in big business, working in a bank, on a system. You know, there's so many different things that you could do with that. So I think from that point of view, it's actually a really exciting way into different types of business.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it is really exciting. There's even things such as, you know, as analysts moving to be supporting to the cloud, you know, cloud services, AI, you know, there's lots of things like that, helping to navigate new waters. And I mean, the big one actually is enterprise architecture as well. A lot of BAs work in enterprise architecture. So, you know, there's lots of ways BAs can move forward. So I think that's good.
Kat, do you find that there's different types of people or different reasons for people applying to do business analysis training now than there used to be, or is it the way that's always been? I don't know. What profile do you see of people that want to enter into that role?
Well, I'll answer that, but probably Claire could probably answer it a bit better than me. But I think that yes, totally. The people are coming from all different specialisms. Obviously, some are coming in through technical. Some people definitely want to specialise in, you know, as a technical analyst. Some want to specialise with working with stakeholders. Some want to think about their user experience, and some are just interested in it because they're just interested in the business side of it. And it's an analytical role, a role that is a role that really is about people and networking and understanding, and it's interesting and diverse. So because it's interesting and diverse, I think we do get interest from people all over the world for lots of different reasons for doing it, not necessarily to accommodate as an analyst. Often they are to, or to use it as a stepping stone to move on to the next part of their career. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Claire.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing with the Business Analysis Foundation is there's a lot of interest from people who are already in the service management space, but maybe want to just learn some of the BA techniques, which I think kind of links to what you've been saying, really, Andy, in that it's not necessarily a full-time role that somebody has now. Quite often it's just, can we apply these techniques in order to deliver service better? I was chatting to a BA the other week, and kind of they said that it's about the goal, not the role now. So as long as those outcomes are being achieved, it's not necessarily about, well, what job title have you got? It's about the fact that, you know, are we doing these things right in our organisation? And I think that's a good way of kind of summing up this whole evolution of business analysis. It's not that the activities aren't important. It's just maybe how we refer to those people in the organisation are different. But that was a good point for me to jump in anyway, because we are at the end of our time. That's really flown today. Thank you all so much for joining us. Really, really good discussion. Business analysis, I think, you know, more important now than ever, but like Andy says, how that manifests within an organisation, sometimes it's maybe not in the job titles that you expect. So I will say thank you very much to our panel today. Thank you to Andy, thank you to Kat, and thank you to Viv, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.